And joining me now is New York Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us here on Meet the Press Now.
Thank you.
So, Congresswoman, Vice President Vance is on the road today selling that so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, this does come as a new CNN poll has a majority of respondents opposing the bill. So public opinion on the legislation could be vital in next year's elections. How do Republicans sell it?
Well, I think as people see the benefits kicking in, they will certainly support the bill. I mean, at the end of the day, when they do their taxes next year, working Americans, middle-class families, senior citizens are going to see significant savings as a result of the provisions that we put in. You know, not only doubling, but increasing the child tax credit and the standard deduction, making sure that the income tax brackets stay low, making sure that we restore the SALT, state and local tax deduction for people I represent. That is critical for middle-class families. And then the savings that they're going to see, senior citizens, tipped workers, those who work overtime. I think when they see that, they will benefit. They'll also see, by the way, that many of the claims made by the Democrats regarding Medicaid are just simply not true. What we've done is make sure that the program is preserved for seniors, for the disabled, for children, for pregnant women, for those who live beneath the poverty line. We put in place provisions to ensure that ineligible fraudsters and illegal immigrants don't benefit from those dollars. And then we put in place reasonable work requirements, part-time work requirements to either work, volunteer, or to learn for people who are young and mentally and physically able to do so, which 90%, by the way, of the population on Medicaid already work. So they'll see that a lot of the things that the claims made by the opposite side are simply not true. Plus the economic benefit. You
and other Republicans are focusing on the tax cuts. You're also downplaying the changes to the social safety net, at least what critics have focused on. But Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley is out with new legislation to undo some of the Medicaid changes in this newly passed law. Is that something that you would support?
Look, I think we struck the right balance here. And as I said, we protect the most vulnerable who the Medicaid program was intended for by rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse. That's something that the American people actually do support. And they'll see that. They will see in time that what people have claimed about this bill is simply not true, and that the program will be preserved and strengthened as a result of the actions we have taken here. I would actually, I haven't seen Mr. Hawley's bill. I certainly would take a look at it to see the changes. But for New York, for example, we preserved fully the 50% match that New York receives for traditional Medicaid and the 90% match that they receive for the expansion Medicaid. That is significant. That was one of the biggest things that I fought to make sure that there were no cuts that would be detrimental.
But does this all mean that there will be some of your constituents who lose coverage? Do you consider them to be abusing the program? And when it comes to work requirements, how do you enforce that? Doesn't that create its own bureaucracy?
Well, again, we already know that 90% of the people on Medicaid already do work, so I'm not sure that making sure that the other 10% that could be eligible work is really going to be a problem here. What I would say, again, is that we had to take necessary measures. If anybody does a Google search and they look up Medicaid fraud in New York State, they will see example after example after example of the type of fraud that is within the system. About a week ago, the Attorney General issued indictments for transportation companies that were defrauding the taxpayers once again through Medicaid. And so this is something that the governor, the Attorney General, and the state controller have said is a rampant problem. Of course, they want to politicize the bill now to score points, but at the end of the day, people will see that the changes that we made were very reasonable. And that the most vulnerable groups that I just laid out earlier, the seniors and the disabled and the others, they don't have to adhere to those work requirements. We're talking simply about able-bodied, mentally capable, people of working age, and it's part-time. So many Americans work diligently to receive their health care. Why wouldn't people on Medicaid do the same?
Well, Congresswoman, I do want to switch topics. There's a lot going on today. You know, President Trump and his allies, there's been a lot of talk about whether the president would remove the Fed chair. Jerome Powell today, he said that was unlikely, but he hasn't ruled it out. But Senator Tillis, for example, has said that firing the Fed chair would destroy the U.S.'s reputation as a safe haven for financial services. Are you comfortable with the president removing Jay Powell?
I do believe that we should see a change at the Federal Reserve. I'll be honest with you. When these rate increases went into effect, it was because we had very high inflation, upwards of 9% under President Joe Biden. That inflation has now come down significantly. Wow. It has dropped significantly under President Trump. And so these rates need to come down as well. We are paying a tremendous amount of money. It's costing the taxpayers tremendous amount of money in interest because of these higher rates, the mortgage rates also. Everything is costing Americans more because these rates have not come down as inflation has come down.
Well, to be clear, the president has said that he does want Jerome Powell gone when his term is up next year, but he says he has no plans to fire him. Are you saying that the president should fire Jerome Powell now?
I think, look, I trust the president to make what he thinks is the best decision. I would like to see a change, quite frankly. If we need to wait until next year, that's okay, I guess. However,
can the president do that, though? Can the president do that? Do you believe that the president can remove him?
I think the president does have the ability to remove him, yes. Now, I trust the president to make that decision on what he thinks is best. But what I will say is, if we do not lower the interest rates, which Jerome Powell seems not inclined to do for some reason, even though inflation has come down from the 9% it was under Joe Biden to where it is today, roughly, 2% or so, we are not going to see savings for the American people in terms of loan rates, mortgage rates, interest rates, and of course, some of the other things that have been plaguing us, like the amount of debt that we have to pay because of these high interest rates.
And Congresswoman, on another topic that's getting a lot of attention today, House Speaker Mike Johnson, yesterday he said that he wants to see transparency from this White House over the Jeffery Epstein files. Do you agree with him?
I do agree with the Speaker. I think, look, we always should err on the side of transparency. And quite frankly, we've been pushing for transparency in all sorts of different measures. Why should this be any different? And so I think transparency is always a good thing.
But in a post today and in the Oval Office today, the president called the situation involving the Epstein files a scam and a hoax. Do you agree with the president?
Well, look, I think that maybe there is much being said about nothing here, but the way to find out is whether there is some type of release of information, and hopefully we'll see a little more transparency.
Congresswoman Malliotakis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.